going. We are live on the Facebook. Let's put YouTube.
All right, welcome everybody to the 034 Motorsport live chat. We are getting up and running on all of the platforms.
We're good.
Instagram, Facebooks, and YouTube.
Yep.
We're here to answer all your questions about all things 034 Motorsport. Automotive questions in general, anything else you'd like to talk about, we have opinions. And we take an OBS approach to responding. Put your questions into the browser of your current viewage, and we will start responding. We have a bunch of questions. We have been getting a lot of questions from you guys. In fact, we already have like
The page.
15, 20 questions in queue already.
Never mind the page from last week we couldn't even get to.
Yeah, so Nate, let's take a more rapid fire approach. Sometimes we wax philosophically, and we'll just try to pound through these so that everyone can get their questions or comments addressed. Oh yes, and I'm Javad, and this is Nate. I'm the CEO of 034 Motorsport. Nate is head of all things software. What mileage range on B9 S4 are you seeing enough carbon buildup to justify a cleaning? I don't have a number.
No, I don't have a off the cuff number for that either. That's going to depend so much on. Yeah, it's certainly nothing like the old motors, the NA motors.
Yeah.
So don't have a good number to give you out there.
I would say that the R8 and the
old ones.
The B7 RS4, it's like you need to clean them every like 20, 30,000.
Yeah, it's like every couple of oil changes.
Definitely like 50. Can you explain why the 2.9 TT injectors would not be compatible with any stage 1 or stage 2 tune for B9 S4? And will that ever change to where it can?
Unlikely, no, because we have enough headroom to run fully 85 on those on the S4 stage 1 and stage 2. So yeah, no, and you can't just swap injectors. It's a massive flow difference between them. So you have to have the proper calibration in place for just the flow rating.
The reason they're not compatible is because one injector flows more than the other. So the factory ECU is doing everything based on the assumption that the injector flows a certain fuel. The ECU doesn't know how much fuel is coming into the injector. It can't figure that out.
Right. You have to specifically tell it.
Yeah.
The quantity of fuel per opening cycle.
So if you, just swap a bigger injector in, the ECU is going to be thinking that, the squirts are a different size. It's sort of like if, you were a gymnast on a balance beam and you just change the size of the balance beam, expected them to be able to finish their routine. It's a whole different recalibration. And then, to Nate's point, the stage 1 tunes do not need more fuel. We understand maybe there's another company that's doing that. You just simply don't need the bigger injectors. So we're really not about doing things that you don't want to do. Everything we do, we want to do it for a reason. For the B9 platform, are you planning to release stage 3 stock CAT files in 2023, or is it more a distant future plan? We do want to do that, and that's something we've been actively working on. We get sort of derailed on we do listen to the customers. We listen to you all. And in some cases, something pops up with our tune that needs to be addressed, and that's a super high priority. New
turbos come down the pipeline.
New turbos. You guys are pretty vocal about what you want from us, and so we will switch. So there hasn't been as big of an outpouring for stock CAT stage 3 tuning. So it's gotten deprioritized a little bit, but it is something I for certain we will release this year. It's something we want to do because you'll still be able to make a lot of power with the stock CAT, and it makes us feel good that it's a very emissions friendly option. If I pay for the stage 1 91 tune, do I get access to 93 and E85 files, or do you need to purchase the extra separately?
You get all of the files we have for any given stage, and you get all of the files for stages below what you purchase. So, if you're planning on doing like something bigger down the road, or you've got all the parts and you want to do it, You can just buy the stage whatever file, and you'll get everything everything up through that file as well.
Yeah, you only pay when you go up the tuning ladder, and we don't consider tunes, up. 91
octanes, yeah.
Sorry, octanes. A 91 octane file is just as important as a 104 octane file in parts. So we give you all that stuff.
Yep.
I can't wait for Javad's chili at Winterfest. Good. I'm glad to hear that.
I can't do
I'm actually looking forward to making it for you. So that'll be fun. That's coming up. Jesus.
like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
No, it's a month.
It is a month. You're right.
Yeah,
Okay.
just scared the
Sorry.
shit out of me for like a microsecond. PCV delete kit for the B8 3.0 T. Thoughts?
Delete.
Um,
How about a delete? You kind of need to finish your crank.
we are working on a catch can kit for that, which is a PCV modification. But PCV stands for what is it? Something crankcase ventilation.
I mean, is it just pressurized crankcase ventilation? Yeah, you're right. The P is escaping.
Positive crankcase ventilation. Yes.
Yeah, pressurized. There you go.
Yeah. So you simply cannot eliminate crankcase ventilation. But you can modify it and you can make it better.
Yeah,
that's what we'll be doing.
there's a pretty large amount of pressurized gas that gets around the pistons during the combustion events, and that's gotta get handled.
Yeah. Definitely. The gas has gotta escape. This is why you can only wear like rubber pants there's an hour rating. Otherwise your farts just won't get out. It's actually a medical problem. When can we expect calibrations for Pier 750? Can we expect that it will require upgraded injectors?
Our plan right now is that yes, it will be the same hardware-based requirement as the 810 file, and that we will have information on that, I think, very soon.
Similar related question. Someone wants to know when we'll be releasing Pier 750. We don't have a release date, but it is something we're working on right now, so it will be soon. Pier 750 versus TTE810. Seems like you will have a tune available for both. Would you pick one over the other? Why? For price, I'm leaning towards Pier 750. The Pier 750 does appear to be cheaper. Since we have not finalized our tuning, I can't really say. There does seem to be a growing sentiment that the Pier 750 is as good as the TTE810 for less money. I guess we'll find out, when we release our tuning.
Yep.
All I can say is the TTE810 is fucking awesome.
Yes,
and it's worth it. If you could get the same thing for less, then that's obviously something to consider. B8.5 S4 remains seal. Yes. We were just talking about this in engineering last week. It is coming. I don't. It's going to be a little bit longer, but it's in manufacturing right now. It's being made. So hopefully like a month or two. Hi, I ordered a B9.5 S4 coming in the next month. Congrats. Are you coming with a flex tune soon? We will not release a flex fuel tune anytime soon.
Yeah, we've got other priorities.
Yeah.
It's
You can just switch.
quite straightforward to switch, and we're working on making things even easier to switch. Octanes, calibrations. So
We have full E85, which doesn't require any finagling, and then there's E-blended tunes, which you just have to blend. The requests for flex fuel seem to be getting less and less as time goes on. There was a big flex fuel push after what's their names went out of business.
oh yeah, previous
Tony Chick. Yeah. Any news on 83 or on 93 stage 3 A10 non-injector file?
we are wrapping that up this week. Is the plan.
Yeah. What new products are in development for the A6 we have our brake rotors coming. We have an S34 intake, lowering springs. We'll be releasing stage 1 tuning soon. A full catalog is basically already available. right now.
Hardware, yeah, we got a lot of
Hardware catalog. So
yeah, tuning's coming very soon.
yeah, we're also working on some inlets for those, which we will pair with our intake. So, are you coming out with bigger turbo inlets for the 2.9 TT? If so, could it be called super dupers? Yes, we are working on a super duper inlet for the 2.9 TT, like the RS5. The factory unit flows a lot, so there's really no need to upgrade that if you're stage one. We are making all of our power, all of our tuning has been on a stock inlet with the nasty step there and everything. We ran a 9.9 with that.
Yep.
Obviously, we don't like it, and so we're
in full weight.
yeah, full weight. So we're working on a super duper for that, which will either fit a stock size turbo adapter or whatever,
Just
the 720s.
just like our B9 S4 stuff.
It's a little ways out. The good news is you don't really need it to make a lot of power. I'm not sure how much more power it will make with the super duper. We will try to post. The super duper definitely will flow more on a flow bench. Have like 40% higher CFM, something like that.
Yep.
But for the time being, I wouldn't obsess too much about that. Just run the stock one. But yes, super duper is coming. That is what we're calling all of our turbo
Amazing marketing.
inlet, all our upgraded big bore turbo inlets that don't fit in the stock are super.
And supercharged.
Yes. What did I say? I just said turbo.
Turbo.
Yeah. Inlet.
Big inlet.
Inlet stuff. What mods are required to run E85 on MQB IS20?
Oh god, I don't know that we've strung that exact configuration out here. I want to say at least high pressure pump.
Yeah,
That's all you. I think that's all you really need
That's
on,
all you
those, on an IS20.
I just tuned my ECU 2017 S3 with you guys. I want to tune the TCU, but have read that it doesn't change much in normal drive mode. Is this true? I have some hard shifts now.
I mean, so our typical mapping, and we're actually in the middle of revising this due to people requesting.
This is DQ 381?
DQ 2017 should be DQ 250.
Okay.
Is that drive mode does stay relatively stockish so that you get basically the best of all the worlds. You can get your fuel economy just comfortable shift performance just like stock in drive mode, and then sport and manual mode you get much more aggressive. Your shift speeds will still be quicker in drive mode, but the shift points are not altered all that much. That is something we are likely revising in the coming months. So that basically it'll be almost like your sport mode now will become your drive, and your sport will be sportier sport. But that's just due to feedback. There's no performance reasons for that. So you will notice it. It will have better torque holding. It'll have quicker shifts. It will have a higher redline maximum shift in drive mode as well. So there certainly are changes.
It's definitely a very popular mod. It's a good thing to do. Up to you if you want to spend the money.
But yeah, those comments you're referring to are likely that request for higher shift points in drive because people don't like the stock shift pattern, which we don't know why they can't put it in sport or manual if they want it different. But we'll make drive what you want.
And good news is if you buy it now, any upgrades
all of our
updates we do will be free.
All of our updates and revisions are always free.
Mm-hmm. Does unplugging the exhaust flap on a B9 SQ5 affect AMAX mode? After tuning to stage 2 TCU, I am unable to get AMAX shifts on a launch.
I don't believe so, because Nick runs his with it unplugged all the time. That's literally what we've done the most testing on the SQ5s is with that unplugged. So I don't think so.
I mean, why not just plug it back?
Yeah, plug it back in
and
and
try it.
back. But that shouldn't have any effect on the B.
Thoughts on upgraded coolant pumps and reservoir for S5 B8.5 AW just came out with something.
I have not seen what they came out with.
We talk about this all the time.
Pump isn't the worst thing in the world. Reservoir, I don't know that I've seen really good data with a fully divorced system with its own reservoir versus...
The factory system is divorced. It's coolant. It's not like, hot engine coolant is running through the supercharger system, but Um, I think early on there was this idea that you had to divorce the cooling system, and there was like a I don't know $2,000-3,000 kit out there to do that.
There were a couple, yeah.
Yeah, but the consensus I think these days is do an upgraded heat exchanger and the pump if you want to do something, but you don't need to do
Yeah, the CWA 100 seems to be good.
I'd be interested to see what AW released. I'm surprised.
Yeah, I didn't
Back.
know they were working on anything else.
Can you pull that up, Sean?
I don't see anything new.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, they've had their
I think they released a heat exchanger
raid gate thing forever.
years ago. Yeah, I mean they're basically an exhaust company now. They don't do much of anything else. Nick with an SQ5 confirms that the flaps do not affect AMAX.
Yeah,
Which is basically what we said.
I think it's exactly what we said.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
He's watching remotely, so he's about 30 to 45 seconds behind, I believe.
Any feature will allow you to display the transmission temperature, and what transmission temperatures will allow Emax to activate?
I don't think there's any easy way to pipe that into like something like a driver display on any of these. That's nothing we've certainly looked at, and I don't think there's any functions there in the display itself to do that easily.
Mm-hmm.
Activation wise, I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to go look to see what the temperature thresholds are top and bottom.
A lot of flap and AMAX talk this morning. It's getting kind of a little hot and bothered. Do I need to upgrade the cooling system when going stage 2 on my Audi S4 S5?
Are we talking B8?
Let's just assume it's a B8.
We talked about this last week, actually, John. Talked quite a bit about it. You don't need to. We do strongly recommend you do it, though. If you're just, super casual, wants to just, do a little quick on-ramp burst here and there, that's the extent of it. That's fine.
Share the last week's cutout.
If you're doing more than a gear or two, full pulls, you're going to notice a pretty substantial difference. Your air temps are going to get toasty.
Do the 034 tunes deal with throttle response issues? Absolutely. We remap the throttle response and functionality. If we find any issues, we correct them. But generally, we believe that we improve the throttle response and drivability and give the driver more resolution in the throttle pedal. A lot of tunes and even the factory at times, you have 100% range from 0 to 100% of throttle, but a lot of times the throttle's open by halfway. And so kind of that last half doesn't do much. That may make the driver feel like, oh, I just pushed the throttle a little bit and I got a lot of acceleration, which is the whole sprint booster APR came out with one too, which is just making the throttle body open faster. It would be kind of like making your stereo, instead of having your knob go from 0 to 10, your knob now still goes to 10, but it's at 100% volume by the time you get to the 5.
Yeah. And then everything else past that does absolutely nothing.
Yeah, so you basically lose half of your resolution. The throttle pedal is one of the, besides the throttle pedal, the brake pedal, and the steering wheel, that's pretty much like how you control the car. And so why would you want to reduce the resolution, reduce the control that you have over applying throttle? Why would you want to have a smaller range to work with? If you have a full range, why would you want to reduce that? So we are very intentional about bringing that back. Now, that means you're going to have to use when you want to accelerate quickly, it means you're going to have to push your foot down faster and harder.
It's a sacrifice you probably...
Which is like how the pedal actually is supposed to work. The other extreme would be just like having a throttle button. Your foot pushes a button and it goes to 100%. That's 0.
Like half the Uber drivers I've ridden with, I swear they just install a button.
You know what this is really like? I don't know if any of you guys are into music but it's called the compression wars, where starting in kind of the 70s and 80s, music producers just made music louder and louder and louder. And so pretty much modern music is the dynamic range, which is the difference between the loudest and quietest note in a passage, is compressed. And so you'd listen to a modern pop song, anything. I know radio stations don't really exist anymore, but on Spotify or whatever. Now go compare that to like an orchestra recording in like 50s or 60s, or even classic rock, Led Zeppelin and that kind of stuff.
I was thinking like Queen has a bunch of stuff.
Queen,
Really
yeah.
dynamic.
There is, if you had kind of a bouncing light meter of, quiet and loud, you'd see that thing moving up and down throughout the song. Modern songs, it just kind of sits there, and this is what's happened with throttle pedals too. It's the same thing. It just hit me. That's the manufacturers, but especially the tuners, are like, let's compress the range of throttle response. Let's just make you get to 100% that much faster, which is exactly what the compression in music is doing. So we're both, there is a concerted effort in music recording to restore dynamic range, and I guess that's us
For the tuning world, yeah.
in the tuning.
Yeah, some of these cars are just ridiculous. Like the BMW, you can get in, just hold your foot still and hit the sport button on and off, and the car just like accelerating and stops accelerating. It just completely deletes
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember one of my friends had an E46 M3 when they first came out. And those have the ITBs, and when you go into sport mode, the car is undrivable. It's just like, like it's just on or off, and then your foot starts bouncing on the pedal. And it's stupid. So maybe BMW has contributed to this.
They certainly have contributed to it. Yes.
Convinced my dad to trade his Durango RT for a Vag car. You should tell us your dad's name or something so we could really talk to him.
Give him that.
Dodge Durango RT. What is this? Some kind of SUV?
It's the SUV, yeah.
Yeah. If he wants to stay in the SUV range, the Vags aren't quite as good. But, for example, an SQ5 can completely decapitate somebody with bolt-ons.
Yeah, I'm gonna say an SQ5 would.
Yeah, it's not as big as a Durango, I don't think.
No, the Durango would be
They're big. Huh?
The third row.
Yeah, so it'd be more like the Q7, which is kind of informing my comment is we're going to start doing Q7 stuff, but there's not a whole lot out there for those cars right now. So if he's willing to get out of a SUV into a sedan or a smaller SUV like an SQ5, great option. But the SQ5 is small. I mean, I struggle with the Q7. It has the rear hatch area is 2 feet.
The SQ5 or
The Q7.
Oh,
the SQ5 is even smaller. At least it can seat 7 people.
Yep.
But with 7 people in the car, if I'm going on a trip with my kids.
I don't think the Durango has much at the back either, though. I think that's you get
if
foot and a half of space.
Same as the Q7 third row down, a lot better.
Now the problem is,
I had one.
I got the Q7 so I could go on vacation. But then once the car is full of people, there's no room for luggage, and the more people you have, the more luggage you. So this is exactly why people have fucking expeditions. So
Or
it
you
finally hit me.
put a big box on top.
Yeah, which I really don't want to do, but I'll probably have to. But an expedition can seat 8 people, and there's 6 feet.
You have a car behind you.
Yeah, you could pretty much pull a car into the rear hatch, but it's just a behemoth.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit more about what your dad's looking for out of his car. I don't know much about tuning for Dodges and stuff. I'm sure there's stuff out there for those too. Generally, I really like German cars, especially the Volkswagen Audi group cars. What does a rear main seal do, and why would you upgrade it? Okay, so a rear main seal is a simple device. You have a front main seal as well. These seals seal the crankshaft from the oil inside your engine coming out. So a crankshaft runs through the engine. Obviously, the connecting rods and pistons are connected to the crankshaft. And the front of the crank comes out of the front of the motor to attach to the front crank pulley or harmonic balancer front. And the crank exits the back of the motor, and there is a flange on the back of the crankshaft the flywheel bolts to. So the flywheel is outside of the engine, and the crankshaft is on the inside of the engine. And at the front and rear of the crankshaft, there is a main bearing cap with your crankshaft main bearings. And there's oil flooding this area. And there's lots of oil sloshing around inside your motor. So what these seals do is they seal on kind of there's a round flange on the back where the flywheel bolts, and on the front there's a snout, typically on almost all motors. And so these seals slide over this flange and over the snout, and it's just like any other seal. It's kind of a rubberized material, and it lightly presses against the crankshaft, and any oil that sloshes up onto that is prevented from leaking out due to this light seal crankshaft. The problem with rear main seals is that about 10-15 years ago, all the manufacturers moved away from the old traditional seal style to this new seal. What's it called, Sean? It's on the website. Just look. It's a Teflon material. There's a spring to it just inherently, and though it does sort of work, they don't work as good as the old style seals. I'm not sure why.
I think it's just manufacturing costs.
They
They
went
can just
away.
stamp out these plates and then bed this in it.
So the older style seals, envision a ring of rubber, okay, and then the rubber is molded in a way that there's a little wing or flap that comes out. That's the sealing part, and then behind that ring or flap is a spring that goes around it. So you have this Viton rubber, which is very oil resistant, long life rubber material, and then there's a spring actually like applying this positive pressure to seal. These new style seals are just molded Teflon, and there is no active spring
You
seal.
just call it a sealing lip.
It says in there, I wrote.
Yeah, this is on the MK.
Huh?
Well, that's just the brand.
That's the brand. There. Sealing lip.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what
All right.
Sealing.
So yeah, the newer style uses a sealing lip, and they don't have a spring. So, we go out and we source these older style seals. We make new billet housings for them, and these are typically like a lifetime product. You should never have to worry about your routine seals. Certainly, like they'll last 100,000 miles. The factory ones do leak a lot. We change a lot of them over in our service departments. It's not going to change the performance of your car or anything, but the last thing you want is oil leaking out of the motor. C7 A6 brake rotors. I do not believe we're doing those. We do have. We are releasing C7 S6 brake rotors, and I think if you
You could do a whole conversion.
could do a conversion, that would be a really nice brake kit for an A6. How will the front sway bar for the B8 B8.5 affect handling? That's another one. We haven't talked about that. Have we released that?
I believe we're waiting for the front and rear
Yeah,
bundle SKU before we
How will it affect handling with stock rear bar versus 0 through 4 bar, and what will both bars do? Yeah, good question. We did recently put a B8 front sway bar on our site. We haven't released it yet, and we haven't gone on and advertised it, but it is on the site. You can buy it.
It's released, not promoted.
Yeah, well, internally, our nomenclature for release. That's just live. So we will not sell the bar by itself to be used by itself. We will sell it by itself to be used for anyone who has our rear bar. We will not recommend running the front sway bar by itself. The only thing the front sway bar would do with a stock rear bar would just make the car push more. It would handle flatter. You would notice a little flatter handling and more responsiveness, but it would hurt the handling ability of the car. So what we will do is we will offer it as a kit, a bundle with both bars. We will still sell the rear bar by itself, and then we will sell the front bar for anyone who's purchased the rear bar before. The rear bar by itself, which is how we've been selling it for years, and we've been pretty adamant that all a stock B8 S4 really needs is a rear bar. Now you're not going to get as much of the flat sway reduction as you would with front bar as well, with just the rear bar. But the rear bar really shifts the handling dynamic towards oversteer.
Way more neutral.
Makes the car more neutral, safer to drive, and faster and more fun. But we have had feedback from customers that they want a front bar to get the full flat handling improvements. And so what we have done is we have created a front bar to be used with our rear bar. Generally with sway bars, there's kind of two types of customers. There's one person who drives their car below the limit, who keeps the car in control at all times while they're driving. Although they will drive fast, they're looking for the reduction in sway in the vehicle. So they're looking for flat handling through corners. They're not going to pitch the car sideways, slide through a corner or something. So that's fine. Front rear bar is what we recommend for those type of customers. There's other customers who are looking to make the car handle more loose, to have more oversteer, to reduce oversteer. And they enjoy getting the car into car control situations where the car is actually sliding through the corner and they're balancing the attitude of the car through the corner. That's the kind of customer we would recommend just the rear bar to. And again, putting just the front bar on would just make the car push, and we will not recommend that. So hopefully that helps. For a long time, we've been saying all you need is a rear bar, and that's still true. But the one thing we've been kind of leaving off the table is the full flat handling benefits, and so now we've released that as well. And we're doing that for pretty much all new sway bars. We're doing
All the options.
Yeah. Used to be we would just focus on the rear bar to get the car handle more loose, and that's certainly very oriented towards like track day drivers and things like that. You can't always drive like that on the street, so having the flatter handling is nice. Any plans for stage 3 for C7 A6? Currently running stage 2 plus and plan on porting supercharger.
We don't call it a stage 3. For the ported chargers do not need a specific file.
Yeah.
They can run our off-the-shelf 2 plus files without any issue. So no, that wouldn't be what we would consider a stage 3 file. Stage 3 would be like a whole nother charger unit.
A whole new supercharger unit. And yeah, you're just stage 2 plus or whatever. We did finalize this week that we will be coming out with a C7 super duper charger kit for those. So look for that in the future. We do get a lot of requests for that, although it's a smaller market. There's just some tool. It's going to be a revised design, so there's all this tooling and stuff, and we just had to crunch some numbers to make sure it was going to be a good idea. I'm about 10 miles from the nearest E85 station, and it takes about 15-20 minutes to get home. Will I be fine on the 94 octane tune with E85 in the tank for 20 to 30 minutes of normal driving?
Yeah, that won't be a problem. We do always recommend, though, that you put a gauge in the car so you know what your actual ethanol content is before you switch.
Yeah.
But no, I wouldn't worry about filling up and then driving home with that. That should be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if normal driving is romping on the throttle, then don't do that.
Yeah.
You should keep under light load conditions.
Yes, drive like everyone else on the road.
Looking at the dyno charts for 710 versus A10, based on the torque curve, it almost looks like the A10 spools faster than the 710. Is that true? And is that tune driven, or is there something about the A10 that allows it to spool faster?
No, what we found is it does spool. Given the conditions and loading, it's essentially the same or faster than the 710. Yep. And that just comes down to the different efficiencies of the turbo.
Yeah.
It's totally different wheels on the turbo. So
I think I talked about this last week, that the A10 is a little bit of a phenom. I think I don't know if we clipped it out, but I kind of went through the whole thing of why the A10 would flow or spool up like the 710 or better.
Yeah. We've been talking about this for a bit. The A10 kind of completely replaces the 710 without any other downsides, really.
Yeah. What's the difference between TTE710 93 and A10 93 non-injector tunes?
Turbos.
Yeah, different turbos.
They're completely, yeah, they're different calibrations for the different turbos. It's just like we said before, it's a totally different hardware in there, different boost control, different, efficiencies at given boost levels. So these are all, calibration efforts that are done for that.
I guess I would ask, why is there an assumption that the A10 and the 710 are the same?
Yeah, these are not the same.
They're totally
parts.
different.
They're yeah. Otherwise, we would have just slapped a 810 sticker on the 710 tune and sent it out the door.
Yeah, I mean that's why we release tunes, because things are different.
Yeah,
and not everything's the same. If the 710 and 810 were the same, then the stock turbo and the 710 might be the same too. There's a lot going on. Someone's asking about Flowform wheels. They are coming. We've had some delays with COVID and
is that still
stuff like that. Oh yeah. Well, it is now in China. It didn't used to be. What's the first mandatory upgrade for the B9 RS5? Is it still cooling limited performance? I mean, it's hard to argue with a stage 1 tune, even on with the stock intercooler is not bad. I mean, that's going to give you a nice bump in power. Yeah, I would start with that. I mean, the RS5 is already a pretty good car right out of the box. Another chunk of horsepower definitely makes it better. Once you start getting into if you're doing track day stuff, it's definitely nice to have.
Oh, cooling is a huge
upgrades,
issue. Yeah, I mean, or a huge.
On the street, it's not so much, but on track, you will notice it, and then it's required for the stage 3 type stuff like the 720. Are you guys planning on making a tune for the B9.5 2022 without the TCU?
Yes. I keep.
Yeah, this comes up every.
I'm actually trying to have something rolling end of this week would be the goal.
It's coming. Hang in there. Best way to get power without a tune in a B9 SQ5.
Yeah. So if you don't have the tune, I would say tune it.
No, you actually. Let me just burst your bubble here. You actually can't make more power without a tune. So the factory ECU is uses a torque request model. So the factory ECU is not simply injecting a certain amount of fuel and a certain amount of timing and targeting a certain boost level, and then if you somehow made a modification that allowed more air to come in the engine, that the ECU would inject more fuel and more timing for that additional airflow. The ECU will actually shut the throttle a little bit if you make a meaningful improvement somewhere else.
Right. Yeah. It's going to control. It'll reduce boost. I mean, you can put a massively open intake on it, a huge open exhaust on it, and it's just going to do. It's going to make essentially the same power, just a little more efficiently because you've uncorked some stuff on it. But you're not going to see really any gains.
This is sort of like your lazy coworker that sits next to you in the cubicle farm, and they're hell bent on working about 20 hours a week. And so let's say management comes in and says, "Hey, good news! We just updated your computer systems and the time tracking system, and you can now get 2 more hours of work a day done." So your lazy coworker should technically be getting 22 hours a week of work done now. Well, he's still planning on only getting 20 hours a week, so he will just simply work 2 hours less in the other areas to make up for that improvement. And that's what the factory ECU is going to do too. The factory ECU isn't lazy. It's very precisely programmed, and it doesn't think on its own. And so for all the important reasons why an engine needs to make power from the factory, for all emissions and regulations and advertising, the ECU targets that exact torque level all the time. So we go in there and we have a nice little talk with the ECU. We say, you need to pick it up. You're not making enough power. There's a lot of potential here. So it's like, upper management comes and talks to your buddy and says, listen, you need to get more than 20 hours of work done. Otherwise, you're out of here. You're going to get replaced with a Durango, or something. So yeah, it's time to bump up the boost a little. We're going to tweak your air-fuel ratios, your timing curves. We're going to put some better fuel in here, and you're going to get a lot more power. So the point is, even if you went out and let's say you could somehow improve the intake flow by 10%, your engine will just reduce
Something else.
something else by 10% to keep the power the same. Someone is asking for 8Y S3 tunes. I know. We're working on it.
It's
Hang in there, buddy. They're coming. When I bought a Dynamic Plus cable to flash my TCU, there wasn't a file for specific software revision. Is there any way to request a file made?
Of course. Yep.
Yes.
Just email tuning at, and we will get that set up for you as quick as we can.
We're standing
Talk to
by.
you about it.
Yes.
So, yep.
What are the benefits of twin turbos versus single turbo? There's benefits and disadvantages, just like everything. Let's talk about the disadvantages first. Two turbos take up a lot more room than one turbo, and you are splitting the thermal energy of the engine between two different turbos. So it's not as efficient from a point of view of capturing that heated exhaust and converting it into the rotation of the compressor turbo wheels. There's twice as many oil and water lines. There's twice as many downpipes. There's you just double everything. So the complexity also increases.
There's almost always more rotating mass as well.
Yeah.
You don't get for a given amount of power.
Yeah.
If you have one turbo versus two, you're almost always going to have
Yeah.
more than double the rotating mass on the twin turbo.
Yeah, because remember, even though you make the one turbo smaller, you're also having the flow that goes through it. So yes, the rotating assembly of an RS5 turbo lighter than that of a 3.0T? Yeah, but there's half as much exhaust flow going through it.
When you add both of them up.
So there's a lot that you can do with efficiency when it comes to one turbo. The advantage of twin turbos, which is why they've become popular, is from a packaging standpoint, sometimes it is easier. Now, unfortunately, with the hot V, it's the opposite. But when you have a normal, traditional style engine where the cold air comes into the V and goes out the sides, you can just stick one turbo on each side. You don't have to run exhaust tubing all around the engine bay. Twin turbos take up more room, so you have the potential to put more turbo on an engine in some cases than you would in a single turbo application. But at the end of the day, there is no single turbo. There is no twin turbo. There is air into the engine. There's air out of the engine. And there's what you can do with it. So these kind of rules of thumb or broad-based generalizations about single, they're just not helpful. You could take two different applications. Twin turbos would be better in one, single turbo would be better in the other. Why? Well, because of air in and air out of the motor and how it's controlled and managed. So,
I mean, this is all assuming that turbo design and technologies are equivalent.
That's what I'm saying.
You can have some massively, more advanced aerodynamics on one style of turbo, and it just completely blows out, the other style out of the water, which has nothing to do with the configuration of how many turbos you have.
The fact that a turbo system runs one or two turbos is basically inconsequential. It's really the least important factor you have. There's all the other reasons, the technical reasons, again, how much air comes in and out of the motor, that actually matters. So single turbo, twin turbo, is a human construct. It doesn't exist. There's physics. Physics exists, and that's really what we need to be thinking about when we think about turbos.
More turbos usually cost more.
Yeah, it's more costly, more expensive, more complicated. Generally, I would always go to a single turbo just because of those variables. What are the reasons you cannot use a single crank pulley, 179mm with a stage 1 ECU and TCU for the B8.5 3.0T?
We target, again, a certain amount of torque for a given file. The stage 1 file will request a amount of boost for that file, and that is going to be mapped to optimize the stock pulley ratios. So what happens if you put a bigger pulley on and you start going over that is the ECU will start bleeding off boost, and you just start recirculating all this hot air through the supercharger, and your efficiency is going to drop a lot. and your cooling issues are only going to get more, get to be bigger and bigger issues.
Yeah.
You know, that said, we do have guys at altitude that will sometimes run a little bit bigger pulley and can get away with it just because they're, you know, they're starting at such a lower ambient pressure.
Yeah, I mean, our recommendations are kind of lowest common denominator. Like anyone could do this. It's not going to cost you a fuse. If you're willing to do some experimenting and you know what you're doing, like Nate said, you can get away with more, but you're on your own.
Yeah.
When it comes to that. We're just in the business of, you know, we're not doing custom a la carte things for everybody.
Yeah.
Ever thought expanding 0 through 4 to the East Coast?
We're there.
Well, we do have a strong presence on the East Coast. I mean, people ask this question all the time. I sort of thought about it, but I mean, managing a East Coast facility would be pretty tough. And yeah, the one thing that we could do, which we are starting to do here locally, is we could put like a ZTF Auto, or which is our 0 through 4 motorsport service departments. So I'm always looking for, like, if you're running an auto repair shop with a tuning focus and you'd like to shut down or sell it or something, then let us know, and we would consider. I mean, we could have a whole chain of those out east. But as far as like what you think of when it comes to 0 through 4 motorsport, we don't need to be on the East Coast. We have dealers and distributors that stock our stuff there. We can ship there easily and quickly. So that probably won't happen. It's the same reason why APR doesn't have a West Coast or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not a lot of, like you said, outside of the ZTF service aspect of it,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of benefit.
Yeah. Saw the new product, the auto drain valve for the catch can for the S3. Can anything bad happen about draining it back into the engine? Great question. I'm glad you asked this. So the stuff coming out of your engine is perfectly good stuff. The only problem is that it came out of your engine. So what's the solution? Well, we're going to put it right back in. It's just oil. And there's some water as well, but you already have water in your crankcase because every time you start your motor, hot air fills your engine crankcase, but the block is cold. So whenever you start your motor, all the inside surfaces of your crankcase get covered in condensation. That condensation runs down and pools up into oil. This is why you're not supposed to do short trips. Even manufacturers say that you should not do a lot of like 5-minute drives in a row. You need to get your oil up to temperature. These are kind of old adages or sage advice when it comes to cars, to warm it up, get to operating temperature. That's so the water in your oil can evaporate and boil off, essentially. It doesn't need to boil, but it needs to evaporate. The hotter water gets, the faster it evaporates. So yeah, we just want to put all that back into your crankcase because it's perfectly good oil and there's nothing wrong with it. Why can't my 2013 Audi A6 3.0T handle E85 but only E40? Good question.
Yep, that's just the amount of fuel that your fuel system can provide, given the injectors and the the high pressure fuel pumps attached to the motor. There's just mechanical limitations on how much fuel can be delivered. So yeah, that's really it. I mean, in theory, we might be able to do like a fully 85 stage 1.5 maybe, but it's still you're not really getting much out of it.
Yeah. By the way, we dropped some new shirts this week. We will be.
Oh, wait, we will be.
Yes, they're coming.
The pre-release.
We have an SQ5. This is the SQ5 one.
So it's for 8Y.
B9 S4.
And that's a B9 S4.
I'm looking at it through a tiny little preview.
Good quality shirts. That's a district shirt. We don't cheap out on that. Has a nice 034 logo on the back. Very popular. All the girls are going to ask you what is on your shirt, and it'll be a good chance to drop some serious knowledge about cars, which girls love.
Oh, just right out of the blue.
Yeah, the more the better. I think that's a good meme. It's
Mhm.
like a guy's talking to a girl,
Just
and she's just
screaming
like
into her
falling in love with it. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So look for those this week. I just bought a B9 S4 with 80,000 miles. Any maintenance items you would highly recommend investing in? Seeing conflicting info regarding the ZF transmissions specifically. Serviceable versus lifetime.
Yeah, so there's really no such thing as a lifetime fluid on
Yeah.
an engine or a transmission. The OEMs have been more and more saying that. I think that they qualify that with a certain X amount of miles. Uh, they consider to be lifetime, but no, I would say it's probably a good idea just to do a full service on the trans and the engine, just so you know where you're starting with from a maintenance perspective. As far as other maintenance items, um, I don't know. We have seen some injector issues on some of these motors at getting
Yeah.
up at this mileage. That's
It can't hurt to just change them.
It's probably
The 1819s had water pump issues, thermostat issues.
there were water pump thermostat, but I would assume that'd be addressed already. But yeah, not a bad thing to look at.
Overall, they're really solid cars. Just do the maintenance.
Yeah, at that mileage though, yeah, I think the only thing I can think of offhand that would be out of the norm would be injectors.
Okay, we're still a lot of questions. Will you guys be making more B8 3.0 T parts besides head gaskets? Yes, lots more is coming. Stay tuned. This should be a good year for the B8 3.0 T. Your website mentions it's still in development. How far is the 2013 to 2016 B8.5 2.0 T Stage 1? And will there be carb certification? We don't have a release date for that yet. I don't think we're going to carb certify those. Love the Stage 1 034 tune for the MK8 GTi. I heard a Scat Packs feeling yesterday. Apparently, Scat Packs only have one feeling.
The feeling.
The feeling of, I don't know,
When they
pompousness.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can almost be assured that anytime you roll up next to one, they'll race you if you want.
Yeah, totally. That's great. That's what we love.
Yeah,
to
no,
hear.
the MK8 GTi tune has been awesome. But lots of good feedback on it.
I'm looking at buying an Audi A6 C7 3.0 TFSI with questionable stage 1 tune. Would flashing your tune get fully rid of the old one? Yes.
Yeah, it will. I would recommend just flash to stock first in case there's any tomfoolery going on in there that who knows. But we would just say just flash back to stock. That'll be your
Always good.
most straightforward path to getting a clean file on there.
Any updates on the S34 for the SQ5 S4? Will there be a plastic intake for the SQ5? S34 is coming. S34 is our carbon shroud with a silicone connector hose and a high flow air filter. They're soon, in the next month or two at the most.
And we don't have plastic options for the S series.
Yeah, well, we do. We have a P34.
Yeah, no, but not the S. The S. I'm sorry, the S intakes.
Oh,
the
no,
S34
no.
series.
No, but I guess the question is, are we doing a P34 for those? And I don't believe we will because the price of the S34 is low enough that there shouldn't need to be a plastic option. This is a good one. I'm coming from a JB4 with bolt-ons. I'd assume the performance is roughly equivalent to your Stage 1 B9 S4. Am I overestimating what the JB4 is doing for me? Would you say that your Stage 1 would be a massive upgrade over the JB4?
Yeah, it will be a substantial upgrade.
I would say from stock is a massive upgrade. I think from a performance standpoint, our Stage 1 will be a substantial upgrade. I don't think... I do think you're substantially overestimating massively what the JB4 is doing for you. And those just aren't very safe as far as what they do to the ECU, tricking it. So a proper Stage 1 tune like ours will not only, I believe it's almost double the power gain as the JB4s.
Oh god, I'd have to look and see. I mean, you can run so many different setups on those. There's no real like one JB4.
Well, the higher you go, the more dangerous.
The more sketch it is, yeah.
But our tune employs all factory safety features, OEM style, quality calibration effects. We believe our car drives better than
I was going to say one thing that I think most people overlook is the driving, because all of these obviously are attached to an automatic transmission.
Yeah.
The more power, the more you push and tweak any of the tuning boxes, the worse your transmission starts shifting. Your
Yeah.
shift quality just deteriorates, really quickly.
Yeah.
Your gear changes get all mushy and weird and hunty. That's just because the ECU doesn't know it's making a certain amount of torque. You're lying to a bunch of the inputs that are coming into it, and therefore it's giving the transmission all the wrong numbers too. So
Yeah.
all of your shifting goes out the window.
Now the time for these tuning boxes was 2 years ago, but their time
Now
is
there's
coming.
just great software.
Yeah. I mean, our software has been on the market for over a year.
Oh, more than that.
Year and a half.
We're pushing almost two. We'll be 2 years in June. So yeah. So I think tuning boxes was like 3-4 years ago. It's over. Definitely get into a good stage one tuning, and then that opens you up to all the rest of the stuff that we do, all our stage 3+ and in the future. Once you buy our stage one, then you're just doing marginal upgrades to the next stage up, as opposed to paying for the whole thing over again. I would encourage you, join our customer group and pose this question there. I think you'll be overwhelmed with the responses. Looking at the camster strut top hats, I assume this requires an alignment afterwards. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Pretty much anytime you take your front suspension apart and put it back together, you're going to need an alignment.
Even if you don't change anything, if you drop the subframe, you remove the struts, they don't go back exactly the where they were. Things move.
With the latest development of the TTE710 and TTE810, are we expecting the throttle body and intake valve flow to eventually be a limiting factor for more power? The throttle body on these B9 3.0Ts is depressingly small.
It's a guy. Yeah.
It's obviously not a huge restriction. These cars are pumping out more power than the rods can even handle.
But we that is something we're
But
looking
we will definitely be addressing that in the future. It'll be a super duper product. I'm sure we won't be the only ones. But yeah, the stock, I don't know, what is it?
at. God, I don't know.
Maybe like 50,
Yeah.
55 mil.
54.
Yeah,
It's tiny. So, but it goes to show you, on a forced induction application, the size of your throttle body is really not.
it's always blew me away to get these 1.8T guys running 90 mil throttle bodies.
Yeah.
They need it.
But you've also
Good
got
luck with that.
180 guys making 600 horsepower with a stock throttle body.
And this is the other side of it. Yep.
Ever think of having a beta program for those who would like to help try out revisions for tunes early? Or do you already have something like that? Yeah, we definitely have that.
We have that. We've been doing a little bit more of it recently. So yeah, I mean, if you're interested, certainly hit up Tuning at. We'll jot your name down. It's not something we do a lot of. It's generally right at the tail end of our development process.
We will put a call out. So you will see posts from us in various groups. Recently, we did it for the Mark 8 before we released it. But we don't have an official program on our website that you can sign up for. It's pretty rare when we do beta testing on every tune we do, but we typically are in contact with a lot of customers who are able to. We could just kind of go out into our immediate customer network and tap users that we know will give good feedback and be capable. We've had issues, and we had issues recently where we had a guy do a beta and it was a nightmare, and then he was complaining about
so
it
much of our
on the
time.
groups and stuff.
We have, and then thankfully Chris put together a big, huge document now on what it is to be a beta guy.
Yeah, good.
And even still, it's tough. Expectations and things can be tricky.
We have to be careful. Not very few customers are good candidates for beta.
If you think you are, and you want to talk to us about it, we will entertain that for sure.
Yeah, especially if you're savvy, you're technically oriented, you're patient. Not being insane is a great quality that we would
It
look
really
for.
works.
Yeah.
Reading and following instructions is also
Yeah. Being able to read, also good. Steroids, probably
might be
not preferable. We are basically out of time. One last quick question. Is there any reason to reflash your tunes after installing bolt-on parts like intakes, exhausts, etc.?
the tune doesn't change. There's no reason to.
I think maybe some people think that there's some kind of adaptation that happens but that's ongoing.
Yeah, it's ongoing. I mean, if you want, maybe clear codes. If you want to.
Yeah. Well, make sure your codes are always clear.
Yeah, you don't need to reflash the same file for any reason.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you joining us. I think we'll be back next Monday.
I
Barring
am.
any disaster. Are you off Monday?
No, I'm off Friday. I'll be here.
Okay. We should be good then. All right. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.